Andres from Doble A Sports. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers. They are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. And this game 6, just wow. All Florida, the entire game. Sam Reinhart, take a bow, was the heart and soul of the team in this game with 4 goals. Matthew Tkachuk got 1 as well for a total of 5 goals. Edmonton Oilers, they did get 1 goal in the third period, but by then it really didn't matter. It was a garbage time goal. The Florida Panthers just dominated Game 6, and with that, no Game 7 necessary this time. Heartbreaking for the Oilers, I will say that. In terms of fans and getting criticized for which one has more, bandwagon fans, which fan base is more toxic that people don't like to be around, and would deserve, a fan base that would deserve to lose back-to-back Stanley Cups like this. I'll tell you what, the Edmonton Oilers are definitely not on that list of fan bases. They're a really good fan base, a very loyal fan base. Their team has been through some struggles before this golden generation. And now with this golden generation, they're really just... Edmonton Oilers fans are great. I've met them at the Shark Tank during the final game of the season when they played against the Sharks in San Jose. Yeah, just heartbreaking for the Edmonton Oilers. Heartbreaking for Connor McDavid. And it sucks because this was probably their best chance to win the Stanley Cup. They're going to have to do a lot of salary cap management. They're going to have to make a lot of hard decisions this offseason to stay within the salary cap. Very heartbreaking for the Oilers. Heartbreaking for Canada. I was rooting for the Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs like I always do. It would have been nice to see the Oilers with a different outcome, unlike last year, but instead this year, not only was it the same outcome with the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup, but it was also in easier style as it did not go to Game 7. Heartbreaking for Jake Wallman. He was one of our best defenders for the Sharks. I was wishing him the best of luck. And that's one reason why I was rooting for the Edmonton Oilers even more, was I would have loved to see Jake Wallman lift the Stanley Cup with Edmonton. Heartbreaking. And then that's another it's an example of the Oilers having to make tough decisions on which players they want to keep, which players they're going to lose, because Jake Wallman is a free agent at the end of the season. So, you imagine guys like him, will they stay? Will they try to keep them, or will they let him walk? But one thing's for sure, in order to stay within the salary cap limits, even though it is slowly going up, the Oilers are going to lose some players from this. But I do think they'll still be contenders next year. They'll definitely make the playoffs. And hopefully one of these Canadian teams finally brings the Stanley Cup back to Canada. As for the Florida Panthers, again, congratulations. And then it comes down to, the final 5 minutes as it was winding down and fans were celebrating. I started thinking, where did things really start to go the right way for the Florida Panthers, right? Because they didn't win the division. It was Toronto, right? They weren't the number 1 team. Honestly, not a bad thing either, because again, the President's Trophy curse is real. That's one thing the Winnipeg Jets elimination showed us. But the Capitals were a stronger team. They were higher ranked entering the playoffs. I think even the Hurricanes were as well. Maple Leafs. So it does make you wonder, where did things really go right to where the Florida Panthers were able to win back-to-back? And in my opinion, it started with the trade deadline. It started with acquiring Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins. One thing that the Florida Panthers were desperately looking to address in the final trade days before that deadline took effect was a quality player that could play physical, deliver big hits, at times even be willing to take a penalty to rattle the opponent's cages a bit, but still contribute to the offense on those third and fourth lines. And Brad Marchand was just the perfect guy for that. He fit in so well with guys like Matthew Tkachuk, guys like Sam Bennett. They had an incredible Stanley Cup Finals performance. all three of those guys, Kachuk, Bennett, Marchand. Marchand's trade really made an instant impact on the team. He elevated the players on those third and fourth lines, and it emboldened them to play more physical hockey. And they elevated his level of play as well. So, in my opinion, from what I saw in terms of things turning the right way for the Florida Panthers to go back-to-back titles, it started with that Brad Marchand trade. That Brad Marchand trade, in my opinion, pretty much guaranteed that the Florida Panthers would at least make the conference finals again. Not only did they do that, they made the Stanley Cup final, and now they are back-to-back champions. Congrats to them. Now going forward for the Florida Panthers, it is very interesting because they're another team that has some free agents as well, including Brad Marchand. They picked him up on an expiring contract. His contract will officially end at the start of July. So will they sign him? Will they keep him around? Given his impact, I mean, you got to try, right? You have to try. Because he was a big part of this team during the Stanley Cup Finals run. And obviously going forward, so what should the Florida Panthers do? What should the mentality be next season? Obviously, given you just won back-to-back Stanley Cup titles, the Florida Panthers have the opportunity to do something in this modern era of hockey that is incredible. Should they have a chance at a three-peat, and should they be successful at this three-peat run, they will essentially turn the NHL into a farmers league. They'll be the one team that dominates, and then all the other players on the other 30-plus teams will pretty much be playing, doing their best, so that hopefully one day they can get traded because they know the Florida Panthers will be the top dog, and they'll feel it'll guarantee them a ring because they're that dominant. However, though, there's one serious piece of advice that I would give the Florida Panthers players, the Florida Panthers front office in terms of their management, as well as the fan base in terms of what they need to do, the mentality they need to have in order to get that historic three-peat for this team. And for me, in my opinion, the biggest thing they need is to not do what the Kansas City Chiefs did this last season in the NFL. In the Super Bowl, in my opinion, the reason why the Chiefs got just absolutely destroyed by the Philadelphia Eagles is because they didn't take the Eagles serious enough. They just saw Saquon Barkley as the main threat. They thought they could shut down the run game, and they'll be like, it's over, accept your fate, just give us the trophy. Taylor Swift, come on down, XYZ, whatever. You know, come celebrate with us. We're the champions already. But that wasn't what happened. Jalen Hurts had a phenomenal game as the quarterback. The offensive and defensive lines were amazing. They could barely touch Jalen Hurts. He barely got sacked. They won the Super Bowl in the trenches and through other aspects. So for the Florida Panthers, if they want to make this three-peat successful, in my opinion, they need to do what they did essentially throughout these playoffs and throughout the season. One game at a time. Don't be complacent. You have the talent there. Just don't screw it up. So yeah, that's what I think can happen. And just how crazy, just in terms of concluding thoughts, how crazy it is what we just saw. Essentially, it was like, this Stanley Cup final did give me, Warriors, Cavs vibes. But unfortunately, it's very clear the Panthers right now are the better team. So congrats to the Florida Panthers. How about that? They went from never winning a Stanley Cup in their franchise history to now being back-to-back champions with the opportunity to get that three-peat. That is just incredible. The fans deserve it. I never thought that hockey in a humid, wet weather state like Florida where they don't get any snow, never thought hockey would be big, that hockey would be successful, that there would be successful franchises there. But we saw with the Tampa Bay Lightning and now the Florida Panthers, that is not the case. Hockey in Florida is very much a success right now. Congrats to the Florida Panthers. Congrats to the star players, Sam Reinhart, Brad Marchand, now his second Stanley Cup title, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, the Sergei Bobrovsky, the star goalkeeper for the team, take a bow. He was great throughout the series as well. Just an incredible team the Florida Panthers have. And with that, they are back-to-back champions, and we have unfortunately reached the end of the 2024-2025 hockey season. We're going to miss it for a bit. Some of us might have some withdrawals, but don't worry. We'll be back. We'll all be excited when hockey season comes back. That's it. That's the end of the season. Now on to the next one with the draft coming in a few weeks, where Matthew Schaefer and Michael Misa look to be the top two projected picks, the top two prospects. We'll see what happens. My San Jose Sharks, we have the second overall pick, so we'll see what great player they can take with that. Andres from AA Sports, leave your thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals in the comments below. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers. And again, just a great playoffs all around this year. With that, that'll be all for this video, guys. Leave a like, subscribe, help grow this sports passion project. And if you enjoy my hockey content, don't worry, I will plan to do more, especially for the Sharks next season as well. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for my CONCACAF Gold Cup content, as I do try to cover as much of the tournament as possible. So yeah, just leave a like and subscribe. Stay tuned for that. Well, unfortunately, this was a sad day for Canada. Unfortunately, the Stanley Cup does not come back. Nevertheless, there is still hope for Canada in the sports world right now, as the Canada men's national team, prior to filming this video, did win 6-0 in their first game in the Gold Cup. That team looks like they mean business. Who knows? Maybe they can upset the two historic giants and bring a trophy to Canada. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much. I'll see you all in the next one.